Amigo.
Jasper.
How can we get our audiences to connect with the world of our film? One answer can be found in Children of Men. The philosophy of the filmmaking is based on truthfulness. The idea is that if you can take your story and tell it in a truthful way, the audience connection will be that much stronger. Let's take a brief look at the film and see how it achieves this. This video contains spoilers for this wonderful movie, so be warned. The core of our narrative revolves around the interaction between character and background. The background and character feed off each other and enhance each other in a way that makes both more believable and resonant. This dynamic is at the heart of the film and is the narrative basis for truthfulness. But not only does the story further this idea, we can see that the storytelling, the craft of the film, also feeds into this central idea of truthfulness. From the production design to the famous long takes, every element of this film works in tandem. But before we can dive into how the medium is used, we first need to look at what it's all in service towards. Let's start from the core. When we talk about background, it's more than just the physical space in which the action takes place. It also communicates the social environment in which our film is set. And in this film specifically, the social environment is where our character's journey takes place. This is also the foundation for the film's truthfulness, and the first way our audience connects with the film. Truthfulness leads to a realistic portrayal of the social environment, and this, in turn, leads to audience connection. Aspects of both the current and future states of the world are reflected in the film. In this reflection, the audience is invited to bring their own thoughts about the state of the world as they watch, hopes and fears for the future, as well as pride and regret about the past. And when the audience has a strong connection with the social environment and background in this way, it opens the door for a stronger connection of the character, especially when the character is portrayed in an authentic way. A large part of portraying Theo as a clear and truthful character are his shortcomings.
I don't talk politics.
It's all you ever used to do.
That was 20 years ago. I'm a lot more successful now.
He's not the best suited to do the task at hand, not only because of his unwillingness, but he's saddled with the pain of his past to the point of inaction, often shown through his vices.
You smoking?
Yeah, it's not working.
The film never villainizes him for this, and it doesn't define who he is, but it's frequently a part of what the audience sees along with the character, particularly as they're getting to know him. But this connection that the audience makes with Theo and his shortcomings are at its height when he's thrown into intense situations. He doesn't suddenly become a wild action hero. He stays very realistic. He trips, he's cautious, and is still often paralyzed with fear. But who wouldn't be? He continues on in the face of all this, and for that, the audience admires him. And as a nice detail, his willingness to give away or use up the vices for other purposes is a nice marker for his redemption journey. But the character is not just being fed by the background, the character's realism is feeding into the background. The world feels real in part because of a realistic portrayal of a downtrodden former activist. And in this way, Theo becomes the emotional vessel for the audience, a window into this world. As a way to introduce our protagonist, the first shot of the movie is him coming out from the background and being amongst it. Our character is often framed this way, in wide shots amongst the background. He's not isolated from the world or its troubles, he's literally right in the middle of it all. This is where character and background meet and where the crafts play their role. As we look at the typical shots a scene in this film has, we realize the camera seldom comes in for a close-up, nor does it often get establishing shots. It's shot on wide lenses and handheld and stays amongst the action. This is the balance between character and background, giving them the same weight. The shot selection and shot design are crucial to making the background prominent. Commonly in this film, the camera will just wander off after the action is complete to show something of the world around Theo. It's so simple yet so effective. What would typically just be a backdrop to a shot is now brought forward in front of mind. It's a representation of what Theo's mind is hanging on to. Even when he's walking away, he can't stop thinking about it. Similarly to a shot ending on the background, shots often start from a piece of the world around Theo. This shot is a wonderful example of how social environment and background are linked. The audience sees not only the location, but the mood of everyone in the office, and it connects Theo's reaction to it all.
A tragic reminder of the 18 years of infertility that humanity has endured.
One of my favorite techniques that this film uses multiple times is a simple camera move across set dressing that tells a story of the history of who these people were before. The cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki said in an interview, "The camera is inviting you to see something external to the plot and saying that it is also important. The camera is inviting you to see the context in another way." The camera's movement itself is telling the audience that the plot of the main character is not all that matters. The world around Theo has value too. When the world around Theo is clear, Theo himself becomes a clearer character. We'll speak later about how our sound design works to build out the world of the film, but as a way to have the audience relate to our character, the sound is much more subjective. The sound the audience hears is not only based on what Theo is hearing, but also what he's feeling. After traumatic events, a subtle ring persists as an additional indicator as to where Theo's mind is. Here's another great example. The audience hears what sounds like wailing train brakes, but it all quiets as Theo's mind quiets as well.
I mean, what happens to us?
I don't know.
In the same way that our audience relates to the character because of his authenticity, the world's authenticity comes through in its design. Though this is a film set 20 years in the future from the release date, the production design is specifically crafted to lean towards references and away from a less recognizable futuristic tone. Certainly aspects of the future can be seen here, but the design language doesn't seem out of place because it stays subtle and referential. For example, references to art or pop culture can be seen throughout. A lot of them very overtly in the Battersea Power Station, but others more subtly working their way into scenes. Nigel mentions Michelangelo's Pietà, which we see recreated later in the film.
Couldn't save La Pietà. Smashed up before we got there.
References like these are places that the audience is able to connect the film to their own lives. The world of the film also feels real because of how layered and detailed everything is. We can see that by pausing the movie on any sign or advert. The audience can derive stories from things seen in the background. From advertisements that tell about a changed attitude towards euthanasia to the PSAs that tell a story of a government trying to keep order and control. On top of production design, sound design plays its role in layering the world.
They are illegal immigrants. To hire, feed, or shelter illegal immigrants is a crime.
Throughout the film, there is a constant barrage of sounds that are as deep and layered as the rest of the world. To further what the film hopes to accomplish with the background, the lighting is designed to be naturalistic and minimal. The scenes are often shot with no artificial sources. The high sensitivity, low contrast film stock used was specifically chosen with this in mind. If not from a natural source, the lighting usually comes from a practical source within the frame. In the film's birth scene, the entire set is lit by a single bulb mimicking a gas lantern. In Jasper's house, this scene is lit only with the single fixture above them and the practical grow lights in the background. In circumstances where traditional film lights are used, they are often hidden in plain sight, such as at the police camps. Altogether, this realism of lighting is the other half to making our sets and locations feel like they belong in the world. The lighting works in tandem with the production design to give the world the feeling that the filmmakers set out to make. Now that we understand the context of the way this film is made, we can finally take time to discuss one of the most distinctive aspects of this film, the complex long takes. This is where cinematography and editing are wed. You can find plenty of information out there about how these shots were achieved, which is fascinating, but why they are used is just as interesting. Editing is used minimally, and the lack of montage in favor of letting sequences play out is central to the audience feeling not just what the characters are feeling, but having an understanding of what's happening in the world. The most famous scene in this film is the car ambush. Partially this is due to it being a technical marvel, but even more so because the feelings generated by watching these scenes are palpable. But this isn't only true for the complicated, multi-minute action sequences. It's apparent even in their small, one-on-one scenes. Having a slow pace in dialogue and editing can help underscore feelings of uncertainty or awkwardness. When Theo is lying to try to get transit papers, we watch him squirm. When Theo is trying to figure out Sid's intentions, we don't get a break of tension from the editing until Sid himself breaks it. Why is this effective, and why is it so memorable? The audience is right there with the characters the whole time, and because the film has used every aspect of filmmaking towards a central goal of truthfulness to lay the groundwork, the audience is feeling what the characters are feeling as things are happening. The stress, the adrenaline, the fear, the worry, the anguish, the entire emotional range that the characters go through, the audience does as well. The moments are registered as they happen and they stack up, building one after another, leading to a compounding effect of emotion. But the shots don't overstay their welcome. As soon as tension lets up, we cut away.
Oh yeah, there you go. It's what you always do. When it gets tough, you walk away.
This is our stop.
Avoiding fertility.